Hi, I'm David Moskowitz with PropThink, and we're here with the CEO of SciClone Pharmaceuticals, Dr. Friedlem Blobel. Dr. Blobel, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, David. It's a pleasure.
So SciClone is a very unique company, a different business model than we usually see in the U.S. Can you tell our viewers a little bit more about SciClone, its business model, and how it's a unique play in the specialty pharmaceutical area?
You're absolutely correct, David. SciClone is unique by being a US-based company with a strategic and business focus exclusively on China. What that makes is a very attractive investment opportunity, particularly for Western and US-based investors, because we combine the financial systems. We have a finance team which is really experienced and trained in US GAAP, in Sarbanes-Oxley, and we combine this with a business focus on China. And that distinguishes us quite nicely from many of the competitors we have in China, who have a local team and in quite a number of cases, the experience in handling Sarbanes-Oxley, US GAAP, is not that developed, and certainly many US investors are concerned of some of the fraud cases which we have seen with some companies from China in recent years.
So SciClone's been around a long time. I've known the company for over a decade. So to clarify, you are a US-based company with significant operations in Asia, and particularly in China. Could you tell us a little bit about the difference between the Chinese pharmaceutical market and that of the US and Europe?
Sure. Before I get to the differences of the market, you are absolutely correct. SciClone has been a biotech company, is public since about 20 years, but about 3 years ago, we refocused the company to a China-focused and China-centric spec pharma company, and reduced and in the end eliminated the biotech development efforts, which certainly helps our cost structure. And the last 2 years, we have been focused exclusively on a spec pharma China play. In terms of differences of the market, certainly a remarkable difference are different growth rates. China today has already reached a large base as a pharma and drug market, and it continues to grow around 20%. More recently, it grew 25 to 30%. The growth has come down a little bit, but is still probably around 20% in the moment, and we expect it to be on that level in the next couple of years. Another important differentiation between the Western markets and China is that in China, there is still a substantial segment, about 20%, which addresses and is handled by traditional Chinese medicine. And that is quite important for us and the specific SciClone situation, because our lead drug, our flagship Sedaxin product, an immune stimulator, is seen by many in China as part of traditional Chinese medicine, and we have the leading immune stimulator in that regard.
That's really interesting, because traditional Chinese medicine is really developed in China. Many families and individuals really rely on it. And so Sedaxin, you're saying, is actually considered to be part of Chinese medicine, being an immunostimulant?
Yeah, thymosins, which is the broader category, product category, which Sedaxin is part of, have been known as part of traditional Chinese medicine for 80, 90 years. So when we launched Thymalphasin in 1996, we had not to explain to the doctors how to use it and for which patients to use. They knew very well. But at that time, what was on the market were animal-derived, actually bovine-derived materials. And as everybody knows, there are a lot of side effects. The purity of these materials is not as high. And we were able to position our drug, which is done by peptide synthesis, as the first Western-produced thymosin, a very clean, pure formulation, GMP quality, and lot-to-lot reproducibility. And that really helped us to build then on this platform over the years the leading brand which we today represent with Sedaxin.
So SciClone, as I remember it, as a biotech company in the early 2000s and the 1990s, was not a profit-generating company. But under your leadership, you've transformed the company. Sales growth is very strong, and the company is generating very strong profits. Tell me about that transformation and how that is continuing on today.
Right. You're absolutely correct that we started as a biotech company. The biotech development did not work out that well, particularly not for Western markets, where the focus was hepatitis C. We did a couple of trials, but they did not reach statistical significance. But we were successful in quite a large number of Eastern countries and got up to 30 approvals in various countries. But commercially, the success was really particularly in China. And that is when we looked at the data, when we analyzed the markets, it became very clear that the opportunity for SciClone was to change the business model from trying to be a biotech company with kind of limited or questionable success to focus on what worked very well, which is the spec pharma approach into China. And that's what we have focused on and been able to use Sedaxin as the lever to build a very strong platform, which today represents 15 products, 850 sales reps on the ground in China, organized in 3 business units. And it is a very profitable, cash flow positive operation, which we have built in the last 2 to 3 years.
How big is the drug right now in terms of sales, and how fast is it growing?
Our largest and flagship product, Sedaxin, surpassed the $100 million revenue mark last year, and it continues to grow with or a little bit above the market, around 20%.
Very good. And it's been on the market for decades. So how sustainable is this base of sales and growth?
It was launched in China in 1996, and the interesting part is we have been able to grow it since then constantly. Every year we were able to grow it double-digit. And another characteristic which is widely known in China is that IP, patents, don't play a big role. It was the same for Sedaxin when we launched the product. We had composition of matter patents. A year later, despite the patents, the first 2 generics were on the market. The bad thing with that is that you don't get protection through the patents. The good thing is when the patents expire, it doesn't hurt you. And the growth of Sedaxin actually after the expiration of the IP was larger than during the time we had the IP. I think it had more to do with our focus, with our business focus, and making sure that we really drive revenues in China with that drug.
So one way to look at it is it's almost like a consumer product over there. Sort of if you come here to the U.S., there's over-the-counter medicines. Some have the store brand, but still Advil, for example, continues to grow because people know the brand, it's promoted. Is that a good way to look at Sedaxin over there?
Well, it remains prescribed. So there is a retail segment, but this is more for a replacement product where people buy it in the retail pharmacy, but it remains a prescribed product, and it is not a true OTC.
But I know a little bit about the pharmacies in China, and many of those will have doctors on site or nearby and a pharmacist right there. And so it becomes almost like a consumer product, if I'm correct, because a doctor can, you can really get the medicine on site right there.
That is absolutely correct. And if you look at growth trends, the retail sector is growing substantially faster than the hospital sector. And as such, certainly is an important focus area for us.
So you've been anticipating a price reduction for Sedaxin for some time. How can investors get comfortable knowing that there is a looming price reduction on the product?
Right. It is a very normal and usual process in China that once a drug is entering the RDL, the reimbursement drug list, that in the months to follow, there will be a review by the pricing authority, which in China is the National Development Reform Commission, or NDRC. And the same applies to Sedaxin. Actually, the same applies to a number of other products. And we have already experienced last August some reductions for Depakine, for Stilnox, which is the brand of Ambien in China, which we exclusively promote for Sanofi. So we know that process, and we have gone through this process. Certainly for Sedaxin, which is our largest product, I think that might contribute to some of the concerns some investors might have. We have been in discussions through our government affairs group with the people, with the authorities who really are responsible for these changes. And we certainly have studied what happened to other drugs when they are reviewed. So based on that information, we think that we can expect a 10 to 15% reduction on the top level, which is the retail level. And then it's not only us who have to take the burden of that, but the distributors have to take a substantial part, and a very small part, sometimes the hospitals. So we think that, broadly speaking, we will have to take about half of what the overall reduction will be. And cautious as we be, we have put about 7% reduction into our budget as of mid of 2012 in order to really reflect what we expect this reduction to be. From a timing point, it's now nearly 3 years that we have been listed in the RDL. We are not the only one which is still waiting. There are about 15% of the products which were listed in 2009 which have not been reviewed, and they are in the class of immune stimulators and blood products. So in that regard, we are not unique, but we are part of the pack in these classes. But the expectation is that the last categories will be reviewed before the leadership change, which is expected to happen mid-October. So we think it will be coming up quite soon.
So just to clarify, you guys are thinking that the price reduction could be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15%, and wholesalers and distributors would actually take some of that price reduction. So a net price reduction to you and the company of about 7%.
That is correct. And I think to put this into perspective, what the impact on the company would be, I think it's important to reflect a little bit on the historic pricing. About 3 years ago, we were able to increase prices by about 4%. That was mainly driven by the fact that the renminbi had appreciated against the US dollar quite substantially, and we wanted to participate in that gain and not leave all of that for the importer and the distributor. So we were able to get a price increase for us. The other important element is that in the last 5-6 years, we have had a very strong focus on reduction of cost of goods. And we have been, just to give you an example, been able to reduce cost for the API, the active pharmaceutical ingredient in our drug, which was around $2,200 per gram when I started, and which is now closer to around $1,100 per gram. So a very significant reduction in cost of goods. And that is not the end point. We have actually started about 9 months ago a program which will allow us to further reduce cost of goods, API costs down to about $700 per gram through a transition, technically speaking, from the current process TBOC to a new process FMOC, which is widely used. It's not just unique for us, but making use of that, we get substantial price reduction. Now put this into perspective together with the price increase we did just 3 years ago, we will, even after this price review, have a better gross margin than, or about the same gross margin which we have enjoyed the first 10 years with this drug. So I think we are very well prepared, and we understand the process. So we think we will not be too seriously impacted by that.
So 2 ways of combating the price reduction. One is improving your gross margin and the profitability on every sale, on every unit. And 2 is the ability to grow beyond the 7% price reduction. How much growth are you getting in the product right now, if you could repeat that?
Well, as I said, we are growing with the market. Market growth has come down a little bit, but it's still a very healthy 20% plus minus a few. And we are growing with the market, and we plan and think that we have the ability to do so.
Interesting. So a net, if you could say 20% top line growth, price reduction of 7%, you're still growing 13% plus. If you can improve the gross margin this year through the price increase, your profitability can be even higher than the 13% growth.
We have, and this is reflected in our guidance, we expect an about 20% growth on the revenue side. And we have also given guidance for our earnings per share, which grow very nicely as well as the cash generation is quite strong. And we continue to believe that 2012 will be another very good year for us.
Talk about your partnered products. So you have 850 feet on the street in China selling your products. And you have other products, as you mentioned, Sanofi's a partner, Pfizer's a partner, Baxter's a partner. How are these deals structured? How do SciClone shareholders in the U.S. benefit?
Right. Those three partners which you mentioned, Sanofi, Pfizer, and Baxter, are deals where we have exclusive promotion rights for some of their products in China. It's typically their second-line products which are under-promoted by themselves. Take as an example Dipakine, which is the largest of these for us. It's a widely used, worldwide used anti-epileptic drug. We were able 2 years ago to get an additional indication for bipolar disorder. And it has been growing in our hands in the last couple of years around 30%. And that contrasts to high single-digit growth, 8-9%, when Sanofi was dealing with it themselves. Now, it's not that we do miraculous things, but Sanofi has certainly other products which are their first priority, like Plavix, like Lantus, and a drug like Dipakine is not having the same focus. So by giving this to us and using a nimbler and humbler organization to really promote that, it is of great benefit to our partners, but it's certainly of great benefit to us because it allows us to certainly also build a platform, but also contribute to profitability.
What do you give back to Sanofi for the rights to those products?
Well, the deal is structured that we get a promotion fee. That's the structure for the Sanofi and Baxter deals. Pfizer is structured a little bit different. We record top-line revenues, so we record then also cost of goods for the Pfizer product. So we certainly like the fact that we are able for the Pfizer products to record also top-line sales.
Is there an opportunity to continue to expand that business? Is that a major initiative?
Yes, in terms of building the business, beside growing the existing products on the market, we have an active business development effort, and we look for additional promotion deals, as we call them, but we also actively look to add in-licensing products or in-licensed products to our portfolio.